So let's solve this question. Yeah, so I have these two product alpha and product beta. Yeah, this is product processing time for each unit. So which means it takes 30 minutes to produce in assembly department, 45 minutes in finishing department. So these are departments, assembly department, finishing department. Those two departments are required to produce alpha and beta. And the time required for each product is given. So we need to spend 30 minutes in assembly, then spend another 45 minutes in finishing to produce product alpha. We need to spend 30 minutes in assembly and another 60 minutes in finishing department to produce product beta. Which means to produce product alpha, we'll need a total of 1.25 hours and we'll need a total of 1.5 hours for this. Yeah, remember, we will not assume any concurrent production. Yeah, so but let's look at this scenario. Before I even finish reading the question, if you have to spend 30 minutes in assembly, 45 minutes in finishing, for product alpha, which unit or which department would be a limiting department? Where do you see a bottleneck? Where do you see constraint? So remember, our constraint is our bottleneck, is our problem, is our limitation, right? So what constraint is talking about is and you look at in terms of time, what is the minimum time required? So which means no matter how much we try to be efficient and fast and all and everything, there will still be minimum time that we must spend. And that is what we are seeing here. So for product alpha, even when it will take 30 minutes to produce, to go through the assembly process, it will take us 45 good minutes in the finishing department. And what it means is that there's nothing we can do about that. We must spend 45 minutes minimum to produce product alpha. And that means we are limited by finishing department. The finishing department will limit us. There's nothing we can do about that. And for product beta, the same finishing department will limit us because we need 1 hour to finish product beta. There's nothing we can do. And you can also think about it in this way to say, considering what is happening in assembly department, how many units of this product can we make from assembly department, even though we know that we still need to take it further to finishing department. Let me use alpha to explain, and let's look at it. In assembly, we need 30 minutes. And we have 12,000 hours. Remember, the total time available for both departments is 12,000 hours. The total factory overhead is 180,000. We have additional cost information, selling price for each product, material cost for each product. And we're looking at identifying bottleneck process. We've identified as finishing, but I'm also trying to explain it again. Beyond looking at it's taking us longer time than the other department because the minimum time is 45 minutes for alpha and 60 minutes for beta. So which means this is the minimum time we need. However, the other way to look at it is say, okay, let me see how much units can I produce from assembly for alpha. If it will take me 30 minutes to produce 1 unit of alpha, with 12,000 hours available, how many units can I produce? 30 minutes is same thing as 0.5 hours. So which means it will take me 12,000 times 1 divided by 0.5. So I can produce 24,000 units. So if I produce 24,000 units, that means I'll take this 24,000 units to finishing department. However, in finishing department will spend 45 minutes. 45 good minutes per unit. So which means that I need to answer this question. Can I process these 24,000 units? Let's find out. How many hours do I need to work on 24,000 units? So if it's going to take 45 minutes, which is the same as 45 over 60 hours. So put in hours because we need to work in consistent units. Yeah. So it's going to take me 45 or 60 hours to produce 1 unit. How long will it take me if I need to work on 24,000 units coming from my previous department? It means that will be 45 over 60 times 24,000. And that will be equals to, let's see, that's 45 over 60. Let me just get my calculator. 1 second. Because it's important that you understand this limiting factor. Yeah. So 45 divided by 60 multiplied by 24,000 means that I can only produce 18,000 units from this particular assembly. And if that is the case, there's a problem because there's going to be excess. There's going to be excess because I brought in 24,000, but I can only take out 18,000. I can't process everything because I need 18,000 hours. Sorry. Remember what we're doing. We said if it's going to take 45,000 hours, 45 over 60 hours to produce 1 unit, now 24,000 units has come in. How long do we need? We said we need 18,000 hours to be able to do that. We don't have 18,000 hours. We only have 12,000 hours. So which means we don't have this. So there's a limitation in finishing department because it requires more time than we have. That is one way to look at it. Another way to look at it, see, I'm showing you the third way. So remember, this is the first way I showed you to look at it. This is the second approach you can use. The third approach, you choose any one that works for you. I always like to break it down in so many ways because different people will pick it differently. Right. So the third way to look at it is to say, okay, if it's going to take me 45 minutes, yeah, to produce 1 unit. We now have 12,000 hours available. How many units will I produce? That will be 12,000 hours times 1 unit divided by 45 minutes. You need to convert this to hours. So that is 45 over 60. Yeah. So if I do that, it becomes 60 60 times 12 divided by 45. I have 16,000 units. So it means I can produce 16,000 units. You can see this guy can only produce 16,000 units based on production hours that are available. And if you can only produce 16,000 units, then you cannot take in 12,000 units from your previous department. So the capacity, this is the capacity of finishing department. That is the capacity of finishing department. So it means the capacity is less than the previous process capacity. Because remember, the previous process capacity is 24,000 units. Whereas the finishing department capacity is 16,000 units. So this is where the limitation is. And I hope I've been able to do justice to how you identify limiting factor. Right? I don't want to rush you, but I hope you are really getting this concept, because I need you to feel very comfortable. And if you have any question or confusion, please don't hesitate to put your comment or reach out to me for one-on-one. I can explain or even provide more support as you might need. Yeah. Okay. Now, that is the first part. We've identified the bottleneck. Now let's calculate throughput accounting ratio for both alpha and beta. And like I said earlier on, throughput accounting ratio is just comparing return. I use this symbol for return, so take note, versus cost. So it's about return per factory hour compared with cost per factory hour. And return is throughput, and throughput per unit is sales price per unit minus direct material cost per unit. And you ask yourself, to get a return per factory hour, how long does it take to produce 1 unit of that product? How much factory hours do we need to make 1 unit? Taking into consideration the limitation, the constraints, the non-availability that we have. So let's look at alpha first. So for alpha, we know that throughput accounting ratio is equals to return per factory hour divided by cost per factory hour. Yeah, return per factory hour is throughput per unit over time per unit. Yeah. So what is throughput per unit for alpha? That is selling price minus material cost. So that is 23 minus 11. Then how long minimum time it might take to produce alpha? The minimum time it would take to produce alpha is the constraint that we have. Yeah? Which is your 45 minutes. This is 45 minutes, but we will not work in minutes, we work in hours. Please take notes, avoid that confusion. You must always work in hours. So 45 minutes is the same thing as in hours, 45 over 60, and that is 0.75 hours. So divide by 0.75. And that is 23 minus 11. That is 23 minus 11, that's 12. And do 12 divided by 0.75. So we have our return per hour equals to 16. So the question is, what is cost per hour? And cost per hour is cost to total cost, total factory cost, divided by total factory hours. And this total factory cost is 180,000 is given, and total factory hours is 12,000. So that's 180,000 divided by 12,000. And that equals to $15 per hour. So that is our cost per hour. So we know the return per hour, we know the cost per hour. This is return per hour, and this is the cost per hour. Then our throughput accounting ratio for alpha is equals to 16 divided by 15, and that equals to 1.07. We'll do the same thing for beta. Remember, it's about return per hour and cost per hour. Cost per hour is the same. So all we need to do is to calculate return per hour, which is equals to throughput per unit divided by the time to produce each one unit in hours. So throughput is 15 minus 9, and the shortest time it will take us to produce beta is 60 minutes, our limitation, which is practically 1 hour, and this is equals to $6 per hour, and that is the return per hour. And we know the cost per hour is still $15 per hour, so throughput accounting ratio for beta is equals to $6 divided by $15 per hour, and that will give us 0.4. So we know the throughput accounting ratio for alpha and beta. So let's put it here, throughput accounting ratio, and we have our products alpha and product beta. So alpha is 1.07 and beta is 0.4. So if you need to rank, you say this is first and this is second. However, what should be your decision? Because this is not even, beta is not even giving us up to 1. You cannot produce this. So this is only 1 you will produce. So because the question is saying if demand is 6,000 and 5,000 units for alpha and beta. Yeah, so that means you can only sell 6,000 units of alpha and 5,000 units of beta. Calculate the best production mix. The first thing is to calculate your throughput accounting ratio based on your internal restrictions. Now you know what you can do and what you can get. Then your final ranking will be based on your external restriction. Now that you know that you cannot even produce beta, it's a waste of time. The question is, should you now produce everything, spend the whole of 12,000 hours on producing alpha? Let's find out. So we're going to assume that you need the total number of hours to produce product alpha to be 30 and 45. So which means total time for 1 unit of alpha, because that's the only thing we are producing, is equals to 1.25 hours. We're assuming there's no concurrent production going on with the 2 departments, so which means it's sequential. Yeah, so 1.25 hours, which means if it's going to take you 1 unit, if it's going to take you 1.25 hours to produce 1 unit, you have total factory hours of 12,000 hours. How many units will you be able to produce? It means you will only be able to produce 12,000 divided by 1.25. So which means this factory can produce 12,000 divided by 1.25. means this factory will produce 9,600 units of alpha. But should you produce 9,600 units? No, even though this is your capacity. Yeah? But there is an external constraint which is stronger. And this external constraint is stopping you at 6,000 units. Look at it here. So you cannot produce more than 6,000 units. So your best production means, is 6,000 units of alpha. And that is what you should produce. So, which means your production facility should not run for 12,000 hours of that capacity. It should only run for 6,000 times 1.25, because it takes 1.25 to produce, and which is what? 1.25 times 6,000. So you should only run your production facility for 7,500 hours. You see, I've used this question to explain so many ways the question can be twisted for you in exams. And I'm still going to dedicate a video for another question, an exam question. But I made this question such that we can hit on so many parts of throughput. And this is where I will end it. Remember, share the video, like, and subscribe. Turn on your notifications so that you get to know when I post new videos. And like I always like to hear feedback from you. A lot of people have been giving feedback. Please remember, put your comments, send me messages, emails, and I'm fine with it. I'm here for you to keep supporting your journey. We'll see you again in the next video.